George Gammon is wrong. So George Gammon is wrong. But what is he wrong about? Before I get to that, you'll probably recognize this thumbnail from one of George's videos. And someone actually shared this with me and said, Steve, I think George has taken your thumbnail. So if you have a look at on the right there, that thumbnail, and here's my thumbnail in the middle here, Zoltan Gold is King. So you can see there, and you can see there. Now, when that was shared with me, I was like, oh, cool, good on him. Really don't care. I've taken content from other people and shared that. I've got no problem with people taking my content, and I've seen it actually on BitChute and other channels, people taking my content. More than happy to. I'm just here to share information and educate people. So more than happy for the message to get out. But what is George Gammon wrong about? Well, I've noticed in recent videos, in recent weeks and months, George has been disparaging Austrian economists and Austrian economics. It's funny because when he first started his channel, he said he's an Austrian. And then he's obviously gone down the Jeff Snyder and the Steve Van Meter camp. And look, those guys, along with Harry Dent, have been saying deflation for the last 3 years. And what have we had? Inflation. They said buy bonds in 2020. If you bought bonds in 2020, you got creamed. If you bought commodities and energy in 2020, you smashed it. So basically, he's disparaging Austrian economics and actually now starting to mock it. And in a recent video that he just did after a debate with Michael Saylor, once again, he did that. So let's just check out that video that he did mocking Austrian economists.
But to think that the government has been printing money, and that's why we've had all of this inflation, so let's say from 1950 to 2000, that's just not true. It's not true. And that's one of the fundamental premises of the not just the Bitcoin community, but the gold bugs and the Austrians, is that 1971 we went off the gold standard, so this just gave free rein to the government to quote unquote print money and to do all these things. And once you understand that that's not true, it completely changes your framework. And this is what I think the Austrians, Bitcoin, gold bugs, a large percentage of those communities, I think this is the blind spot that they have. And let's go back to the GFC. Why did almost every single Austrian get inflation wrong? Why? Because they didn't understand money printing. Almost every single Austrian, not all, but almost every single one, thought that quantitative easing would lead to almost hyperinflation. Why didn't it? And now, granted, it definitely, the inflation rate was higher than the CPI would lead you to believe, but it didn't lead to hyperinflation. Why? Because exactly what we're talking about. They don't understand money printing. They don't understand the variables that go into a decrease or an increase in M2 money supply. See? The conclusion you have to come to is that, now it is true, and that, like Michael said, the Civil War, the government definitely printed money. They literally printed M2. They printed green pieces of paper and spent them into the economy. And this is the way the Austrians, or the sound money people, think the economy works today. That when the government spends money or deficit spends, or they just kind of print green pieces of paper, or they do that through the Fed. And then you ask them, okay, well, if the Fed buys from a bank, then how does that increase M2? And they just, it's It's like they just put their hands over their ears. Like they don't even want to go down that path. Or you just ask them, well, prior to the GFC, how does that happen? Right? The bottom line is it doesn't. Now, you go back to World War II, fine, but you got 50 years, for heaven's sakes, between 1950 and 2000. How did that money supply increase by this much? It wasn't the government. It wasn't the Fed. The banking system.
All right, so there you go. George, who, when he started his channel, claimed to be of the Austrian side of things. And, yep, I kind of believe in Austrian economics and all that sort of stuff. I have noticed as time's gone on, he now kind of says Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell of the Chicago School are his favorite economists, and definitely, more down the Steve Van Meter, Jeff Snyder side of economic history and whatnot. But you heard everything that he said about Austrian economists not understanding the monetary system and claiming that Austrians think that the government prints money. Okay. So, what I did was I commented on the video, and I just said, George, and I've said in previous videos where he's kind of mentioned this stuff again, I said, please show me where Austrian economists say that the government print money, that's where inflation is. So in the comments, I just simply asked, George, have you read Ludwig von Mises, The Theory of Money and Credit? And if you have, where in here does Ludwig von Mises say that the government is the creator of money? They print money. That's MMT. That's the Chartalism folk. That's not Austrian. I then asked George, have you read Rothbard's The Mystery of Banking? Show me where in here Rothbard says that the government prints money, that the government is the printer of money, the main printer of money. No, Rothbard doesn't say it. So, I asked George this in the comments. And then I shared this link, a recent book by Bob Murphy, Understanding Money Mechanics. And I said, George, have you read Austrian economist Bob Murphy, his book, Understanding Money Mechanics? Where in here does Bob Murphy say that the government prints money? He didn't respond. Now, we can have a look at Bob Murphy's book, Understanding Money Mechanics. By the way, I'll put a link in the description below. You guys can download these books for free and read them yourselves. But here, just a table of contents from Bob Murphy's book. So check it out. So we got Introduction, Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Theory and Brief History of Money and Banking. Chapter 3, A Brief History of the Gold Standard with a focus on the United States. Chapter 4, The History and Structure of the Federal Reserve System. Then we go into Part 2, The Mechanics, which is Chapter 5, Standard Open Market Operations, How the Fed and the Commercial Banks Create Money. Chapter 6, Beyond the Fed, Shadow Banking and the Global Market for Dollars. So this is, he talks about the euro dollar and LIBOR, etc. Chapter 7, Central Banking since the 2008 financial crisis. Chapter 8, Fed's policy since the 2020 and then Part 3, Applications. So Chapter 9, Ludwig von Mises's Circulation Credit Theory of the Trade Cycle. Chapter 10, Monetary Inflation and Price Inflation. Chapter 11, The Inverted Yield Curve and Recession. Chapter 12, The Fed and the Housing Bubble Bust. Then Part 4, Challenges. Chapter 13, Does Textbook Explanation Get Money and Banking Backwards? Chapter 14, Crying Wolf on Hyperinflation. Chapter 15, The Keynesians on the Cause of and Cure for Depression. Chapter 16, The Market Monetarists and NGDP Targeting. And Chapter 17, Bitcoin and the Theory of Money. And Chapter 18, An Austrian Reaction to Modern Monetary Theory. So in that gives you a bit of an outline of what Bob Murphy's book is all about. And you can see that Bob addresses everything. Okay. there is not this, well, Austrians believe that government prints money. That's it. Governments print money. And George Gammon talks about, all Austrians thought that, we're going to have hyperinflation, when QE began. Well, some did. Peter Schiff and some of the loud Austrians did. But I remember back then, around the Mises Institute, there was a lot of debate about this and about whether there was going to be hyperinflation. And there was a lot of Austrians that were saying, no, it's not, that the central bank are creating bank reserves and just buying these assets, and it's like a asset swap. And it's not going to cause direct inflation unless the banks then increase their lending. Now, I also shared in the comments on George's video, I said, George, here, check out this episode of The Bob Murphy Show, episode 200, VJ Boyaparty explains why he was right about inflation in 2010 and Bitcoin in 2018. VJ said back in 2010 that we aren't going to see inflation. This is an Austrian saying that we're not going to see the hyperinflation. Why? Because he explains how bank reserves work. So, I asked George, listen to it. Have you listened to this? Not every Austrian thought that. But, once again, he tells people to stop hearing the noise. I think George should listen to himself, stop listening to the noise, and actually read the literature. Listen to what Austrian economists actually say, not just listen to the loud ones that, like Peter Schiff's, for example. And I even shared this as well with George in the comments. I said, George, did you realize that Bob Murphy actually spoke with your mate, Jeff Snyder, explaining the repo market flare-up, the Fed's phony solution, the global dollar problem? George thinks that Austrians don't understand the monetary system. They don't understand the euro-dollar system. They don't understand bank reserves, that we're all just some kind of, I don't know, I don't want to use the words, but yeah. I would encourage George, as someone who's studied Austrian economics, who's done postgrad from the Mises Institute, and read almost every Austrian economic book there is from the major authors anyway, that perhaps he should read Austrian economic literature and see what we actually have to say. And yes, going back from Menger to Bombarwerk to Mises to Hayek and Rothbard and all the way through to today with Bob Murphy, the banking system has changed. And so what Menger wrote and what Mises wrote was applicable for that time period. Whether you're looking at fractional reserve banking and, different issues around the gold standard and whatnot, remember that the monetary system changed. We didn't have the euro dollar system back in Menger and Bombarwerk and Mises's day. We didn't have the petrodollar. We didn't have any of that. So yeah, it just frustrates me because once again, George is listening to the noise rather than reading the actual literature and saying, well, Austrians just cover their ears and no. Yes, some Austrians did get it wrong and called for hyperinflation. And like Bob Murphy, he got it wrong. And he explains why he got it wrong. And it's got nothing to do with, well, the government prints money. He knew the dynamics of it. He just thought that the banks would lend it out. But anyway, so the thing is, I put all this in comments. I wasn't going hard at George. I just wanted to provide information for George. Here's some resources, George. I just want to point out that you're actually wrong. Here's some resources. Go read it. Go listen to these podcasts, and you'll actually see what Austrians actually believe and what we actually talk about and what we say and claim. But my comments were deleted. And I've checked multiple times. My comments were deleted. I don't know why. So I don't know what's up George's butt lately. But yeah, I tried to just provide some resources and some education. But George knows it all. So don't debate George. He'll debate any of you. He'll leave you for dead. He knows macro better than anyone. Come on, George. You're better than this. You're better than this. Anyway, guys, this is my last video for 2022. What a way to end it off, eh? George Gammon's wrong. Look, George has done a lot of great stuff and does continue to do a lot of great stuff. He stands up for freedom and liberty, and these are all things that I absolutely agree with him on. And you know, I agree with him when he talks about bank reserves and how that all works. I just disagree with his understanding of Austrian economics, and I'd suggest he should do some more reading. But anyway, it is what it is. If you guys want to pass this info to George, do so. I tried to, but yeah, he deleted my comments and deleted the resources, so no one else could see them. But I'll put the resources in the description below. I encourage you guys to download them yourselves. They're free ebooks from the Mises Institute, and you can read exactly what Austrians have had to say over the years. In particular, I think you'll find Bob Murphy's book very good because it's the latest one with all the latest information and changes in the monetary system. So, but as I said, this is my last video for 2022. I just want to thank everybody for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the support. I want to really thank our Finance Uncut insiders. I know we've had some email issues, and I know some of you have had some issues with receiving the report into your junk box. I can say that we are moving to a new server as we speak right now, and so our emails are actually going to be down for the next couple of days as the migration goes across, but that private server will have no more data or storage issues, and Finance Uncut insiders, you won't miss or it won't go to your junk box anymore. So I want to thank everybody. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Have a safe Christmas. For those that are traveling, I wish you all safe travels. Come back and let's hit 2023. Let's hit the ground running for 2023 and try to make sense of all the crazy stuff that's happening in the global economy and financial markets, etc., etc. So everyone, that's me for 2020. God bless, and I'll see you all again in 2023. And just a reminder, the information provided in this video is for education and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this channel constitutes as financial advice. The information in this presentation is no substitute for financial advice, and all investors should seek advice from a licensed financial advisor having regard to your own objectives, financial situation, and needs.